You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
The day has finally arrived.
I feel so vindicated.
Merely half an hour before we started recording today, it is confirmed that Joe Biden is dropping his delegates for the Democratic nomination for president, and he has already endorsed Kamala Harris to be the party's nominee. It's a glorious day.
I feel crazy right now. As soon as I got off the car at the studio, Jeremy opens his car door. Biden's dropping out.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Got to shout out one of our YouTube moderators, Kate, for letting us know.
Yes.
She's modeled our merch. She's a member of the Hiddo Canon. So thank you again, Kate, for letting us know about the Trump assassination attempt and now this.
Couldn't do it without you.
Insane week of news. Joe Biden's officially out of the race. There's an infinite number of things to talk about here, and it makes half of the show notes completely irrelevant.
Yeah, believe me, I'm so glad. I was not expecting it to happen on Sunday at like 2:00. That's when we record. It's like Biden's a listener.
Yeah,
one of his staffers has got to be tapped in.
Now, look, we're gonna talk about Biden dropping out as much as we can, but of course we can't let the news sort of cloud what's really important.
Yes.
And that's your support of the Head in the Office podcast.
Oh my
Welcome
gosh,
back to the show. And if you want to support the show, you can go get some merch at headintheoffice.com. You can become a patron at patreon.com/headintheofficenews. And you can even get a subscription to Ground News.
Pretty good.
We aired our first ad with Ground News last week. That deal is still happening, 15% off, and you get access to all of their cool features.
And I
will
will say, I actually can't wait to log on to my Ground News account later and see just how this is going to be covered.
Yeah,
just how the Biden split is going to be covered.
Yeah, look, it's like obviously we're making something from it.
Yeah.
So this isn't this. What I'm about to say is not just because we are sponsored by them.
Yes.
Genuinely a good tool.
Yeah, it's
one that has been useful for me.
It's interesting, and it provides a lot of interesting data.
Yeah. Also, before we get into the show, we should read our 5-star reviews here. Of course, if you want your 5-star review read, you can leave it on Apple Podcasts, or if you don't have access to Apple Podcasts, you can DM us on Instagram. It's a great way to help the show completely for free. We got 2 today. The first one is "I Condemn All Political Violence" by J for NCNC. I don't know if that's how that's supposed to be said. "All of this political violence recently has made me realize it's not enough to simply condemn Hamas, but actually all political violence."
Agreed wholeheartedly.
I'm going to say I share the best state in the union with the #1 geopolitical podcast worldwide, Michigander over here. Shout out to Jeremy and Gage for keeping me absolutely locked in on domestic and foreign politics and a calm peace of mind through all of this chaotic political violence that ramped up about a week into October, some may say. I gotta say my appreciation for nuance has skyrocketed. My appreciation for nuance, nice, has skyrocketed since I've started listening to the pod, trying to put all my centrist friends onto the pod slowly to radicalize them with propaganda. I always make sure to come out condemning Hamas in the end, though. Thank you for that review.
Sure.
And I'm glad you condemn all political violence, because me too.
Exactly. Shout out nuance. You know what I'm saying? This next and final review this week, Best Political Podcast You'll Find by Palmer Ratliff. First and foremost, I undoubtedly condemn Hamas. This podcast is amazing when it comes to discussing political topics and is easy to follow alongside the humor. I am currently a Wednesday weenie due to my terrible retail job, but plan to change that in the future. Oh, also, did I mention I condemn Hamas?
I'm glad you condemn Hamas.
I am glad you condemned Hamas. However, not seeing a political violence condemnation in there. That's
worrying.
That's actually disturbing.
Someone should look into this.
Lester Holt would have some words for you.
Now, I would say let's get into the news and talk about Biden, but basically everything I wrote this morning is obsolete.
The subheading for this part of the show notes was, "Is Biden out or not?"
Yes.
Oh, he's out.
Yes.
He's fucking out. He fell out of the coconut tree.
Usually I will do my research, look at the news, and write my portion of the show notes on Saturday mornings so that I can, have some time to mull over it and think about exactly how I want to articulate the points that we're going to bring up. But this time I had heard murmurs. I saw murmurs on Twitter and in the news that an announcement of some kind, separate from him just saying I'm staying in, would be coming soon. So I waited until this morning, Sunday morning, and then around like 10 a.m. I was writing this and just looking at the reports. I was like, this is a whole lot of nothing. We're kind of in limbo. And then as soon as I pull up to the studio, Biden's dropping out.
And it's like, to be fair, who drops an announcement like this at like 2:00 on a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
You know, I would
He's got COVID right now.
Exactly. I would expected this to come like maybe later tonight. I thought
as a press conference,
a bunch of rumors had been saying there was going to be an announcement in the coming days that came out on like Thursday or Friday. So I'm like, it's coming soon. I was sure it was going to happen on like a Monday. One, because of the Hiddo curse, and two, because that's kind of when just things like this get announced.
Right.
Who announces it midday Sunday? But like, boy, am I glad they did.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why. Some people were theorizing that he was going to do it during Trump's speech at the RNC on Thursday. I'm glad he actually didn't do it then, because I think, and we'll talk about the RNC later on, because it's still relevant. You know, we got to talk about Trump and JD Vance. I think it's best he didn't do it during Trump's speech, because I think it's good to let Republicans get all the attention they want, because the more attention they get, the less people tend to like them.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's true. That's
Project
true.
2025, as much as Trump wants to distance himself from it, it is the conservative agenda. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they wrote it all out is really unpopular to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The more they just vague post and the more they just talk through euphemisms, the better off they are. But they're getting worse and worse at doing that. So I think it's good Biden didn't steal the moment from Trump and the Republicans at that point. But yeah, Sunday is a very weird choice.
Yeah.
Good for us, though. I guess Biden listens to this show. I'm not complaining. It's just weird.
We've been alleging it for a while, and now it's finally confirmed.
Yeah. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, though. The reason, the way that we all found out just a couple of minutes ago, just half an hour ago, that Biden was dropping out is a Twitter post.
Yes.
All good things come from Twitter.
It gets a good platform now.
He put out a pretty long statement, well, just a page long, but long in terms of I'm not reading all that right here. But I will read a snippet just to show our proof.
Yeah, he started off just sort of talking about how, these are the things we got done. We passed legislation doing X, Y, and Z that were good, and blah, blah, blah. But now...
Exactly. Blah, blah, blah. No one cares about policy.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yap, yap, yap.
This could have been a one page, or it could have been one sentence. You know what I mean?
It could have just been a tweet.
But I'll read this snippet right here, and this is the proof that we've been looking for. Mm. He says, quote, "It's been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week with more details about my decision." And then shortly after that, he put out a tweet saying, I have decided to not accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. A little bit later on, he says, "I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee for our party this year." So it's unambiguous.
Oh my goodness. First old person in politics to step down when appropriate.
And look, I want to issue my formal apology to Nancy Pelosi. I didn't understand your game.
That's what I'm saying.
I did not understand your game.
This week, literally, not only did a year worth of news happen, just in this span from Saturday to Sunday when the Trump assassination attempt happened to Joe Biden dropping out now, but also things have just completely changed. Never would I have thought I would be on Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer's side over Ilhan Omar and AOC.
Oh my God, politics has reshuffled itself completely in the span of 3 weeks. It's ridiculous. Like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer, I did not understand your game.
I did not.
They got it done.
I sincerely apologize to Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Like she was in there. Reports had came out that literally since the night of the debate, since June 27th, she had been making phone calls trying to get this guy off the ballot.
Yeah.
And Chuck Schumer came out and he's talking to Joe, and then shout out Barry. Shout out Barack Obama. This is now the second major election in a row that he has pulled the strings behind the scenes to get changed to however he wanted it to happen.
It goes to show you, Obama really could be the God King Emperor of the Democratic Party.
He could.
He just chooses not to, except in clutch moments when, in 2020, I highly criticized him.
Yes.
For basically pulling the rug out from under Bernie Sanders. But this time around, he made up for it.
It's like the seesaw is swinging back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like he did a bad thing in 2020, and now he's reconciling with that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And look, the line that the liberal media and, the Podjons and all the liberals are going to run with is that Biden is very honorable for stepping down. He did the right thing. And you know what? I'll accept that. I think Joe Biden has been monstrous on foreign policy for the most part. I think he himself has proven himself to be a stubborn, old, egotistical man.
Yes.
But I'll let him get away with looking like the honorable person here.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm perfectly fine with that if it means that we can get probably Kamala Harris, a candidate generally that can actually orate and beat Donald Trump in November. I am astonished the Democratic Party has been able to pull this off in this way.
For the tenure of this podcast, for the last 3 years and some weeks that we have been doing this, every fucking week, it has been Democratic strategy is a fake job. They constantly make the wrong decision. They always just actively act as if they want to lose. And fucking finally did the big dogs in the party get their shit together. It's like they were saving it for this moment.
Yeah, the Democratic strategists that help run Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, etc.'s office came together and they found a way to defeat the evil forces of Jill Biden and Hunter Biden.
Exactly. I'm saying give them the Congressional Medal of Honor.
I'm saying
they have done that. That is probably amounts to more than they have ever done within their legislative careers. That is the best good that they have ever done.
My God.
It's absolutely insane. And to that point about like how Joe Biden's legacy will now be like, oh, he was honorable one-term president, stepped down when he needed to. I'm not going to be mad at that rhetoric going forward. Obviously, I know it's wrong because Joe Biden's presidential legacy is very complicated. On one hand, he has been the most pro-union president in modern American history. On the other hand, he has helped facilitate genocide in Gaza. You know what I mean? Very bad. It's not the best. But I think that rhetoric moving forward will help set up Kamala Harris for a better campaign, and it will set her up to be able to run off the accomplishments of the Biden administration of which she was a part of.
Yeah. Now, of course, as we talk about this is literally breaking news right now.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what's going to happen. I would imagine by the time this comes out on Wednesday, we will have a lot more details as to how the convention is going to work. Maybe we'll have murmurs of who the vice president, well, I guess the candidate for president, Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick might be. I'm just assuming it's going to be Kamala Harris, and I'm perfectly fine with that because I'll be honest, I didn't just fall out of a coconut tree.
I didn't. I exist within the context, and that's
do.
where it's all pointing.
Yeah, I'm unburdened by what has been, and I can imagine what will be.
I can say I am. I still stand by the idea that I'm a Whitmer head. I am a Whitmer head, but her time is in 2028 or 2032 after 2 terms of Harris.
Yeah, look, or maybe she can get a cabinet appointment or something like that. She was a lawyer before. Maybe she can be AG. I don't know. Okay,
I don't know what it is.
I'm not going to pretend to know, but I think this is a great development.
Yes.
We're going to know a lot more by Wednesday and later on in the week. We'll probably get a press conference if Joe Biden is feeling better after he gets over his COVID infection. But yeah, we there's just a lot we don't know right now. What I imagine is going to happen is they're still going to hold a quote unquote open primary, but I don't think it's going to be open technically. But I don't think there's really going to be any challenge to Kamala Harris since Joe Biden has officially endorsed her. But I think they're going to use the technicality of an open convention to legitimize her role as the nominee for president.
100%. I think there have also been reports among the other reports that this week was marred by reports that's like, oh, Joe Biden, instead of saying that Kamala can't win, he's asking, can she win? Or Joe Biden is saying, instead of saying, I'm not going to step down, he's saying, I don't want to step down and things like that. And that's supposed to, these vague statements are supposed to let us indicate that he's going to be dropping
genuinely
out,
nauseating. That shit was disturbing me. I was mad.
Exactly. There have also been reports that say that Democrats don't necessarily agree on how to proceed after he drops out, whether or not they want to just proceed with Kamala Harris as the de facto pick or do an open convention. Like you said, I think the convention will happen, but it's not going to be as open as a regular convention would be. You know what I mean? I don't think there's going to be any serious challengers. I don't think Newsom is going to get up there and challenge her. I don't think Whitmer is going to
keep all Californians fucking away from this, except for Kamala Harris. Nobody from California needs to. I sort of California is a failed state. They need to stay away.
You
from
know
this.
what? They 7th largest economy in the world. They better act on that and leave.
You seen all the shoplifting there?
Exactly. Can you believe the crime?
Now that we got Biden out, I'm fully blue MAGA, 100%. Why are you talking bad about Kamala Harris? You want Trump to win?
Exactly. From now until November, all those ballots have been cast and counted, I am a Democrat.
Now that it's politically beneficial for me personally,
exactly.
100%.
I'm Pelosi's strongest soldier, and I think she's earned that.
It's crazy that Nancy Pelosi, I think, is the same age as Joe Biden, or like maybe a year younger, and she just completely outmaneuvered him.
And she's a machine.
Yes. I gotta give it to her. I straight up got to give it to her.
I'm saying.
Oh man, but listen, the time of recording this, we're about a month or 3 weeks away from the start of the party convention.
We are recording on Sunday the 21st, and the party convention starts on Monday, August 19th.
Okay, so about a month away from the start of the party convention, and there's a lot that's going to happen before then. If there are people that want to throw their hat in the ring and challenge Kamala Harris for the nomination, it will happen within these 4 weeks, so they can start getting press attention for it. But one thing to consider is that before the primary process was really established, I think starting in like the 1920s, and then it really became formalized throughout the 1900s, party conventions were very much like backdoor deals, smoke-filled rooms, that kind of thing, like the typical party machine you can imagine. But nowadays, delegates are just like, old ladies from your neighborhood. Yeah, they're just like regular Democratic Party loyalists. They're not people that are like making deals behind closed doors and smoke-filled rooms. So there is an option that, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, somebody convinces them or wins a portion of those votes and maybe can challenge Harris for the nomination. Maybe it goes to a brokered convention if it's split 3 ways and nobody hits a majority. But I think it's safe to assume that it will be Kamala Harris because, after all, we do exist in the context.
Exactly.
So.
And I really can't see a world where any of the people that were on that head-to-head poll that leaked, that originally converted me to the KHive. You know what I mean? I can't see the Buttigieg, Whitmer, Newsom, or whoever else was on there having not enough political savvy to know that they really shouldn't get in the way at this moment right now. Especially like a Buttigieg. Like they're not going to do anything, I don't think. If there are any challengers, it's not going to be serious. Yeah. I think we are going to see a litany of grifters that come up in the next 4 weeks, just trying to run like a fake
Marianne
campaign,
Williamson
basically. We're going to see a Cornel West come out and try to do something. And this convention is kind of the same thing as like what happened with the primaries, in that it's kind of fake, So it's going to be Kamala Harris. It's got to be.
Yeah. But in terms of her vice presidential pick,
white boys up 1 million.
White boys definitely up. White Democratic governors from swing states up 1 billion.
White boys going crazy right now. Oh my! White boys geeked. White boys have never been up higher than before.
Because it's got to be a white boy.
And then as soon as she announces what white boy she picks, I'm dropping in the comments DEI vice president. Because that's exactly what it is. Yes. That's all the vice president is. Oh my goodness, it's good.
Yeah, it's. We talked about this just before we hit record. It's probably, I would assume, Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, is pretty high up there on the list because he is a governor from a swing state that Harris would absolutely need to win in order to win the Electoral College. And he beat Doug Mastriano by pretty wide margins last time around. So and he's not like, we're progressives here. We're socialists on this podcast. He's not a progressive, which would sell well over people that are worried about voting for a black woman. Yes. Given that she will probably be attacked as a radical and as... they'll get as close to slurs as they can.
Absolutely. And milquetoast white guy?
Yeah, choosing a milquetoast white guy, moderate liberal, will be a good look for her in a country that is still pretty racist, but not as racist as it was.
They've never been up more. Yes. Like I don't know how conservatives can get up here and say that white men are oppressed in this country. Do all this white grievance politics.
White Democrats up 1 trillion.
Exactly. Look what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So fucking white boy summer, if I've ever seen it.
Oh man, what an exciting time!
I know. It's also hard because usually, I work on these show notes for hours before the show, think through what I'm saying, and news doesn't drop 15 minutes before we hit record like it did today.
Sunday's usually safe from news.
Exactly. Yeah. And nothing usually happens. Nothing ever happens.
Something happens. Nothing ever happens. Bros are down. And look, I'm firmly in the nothing ever happens camp until something happens.
Exactly. Every time, and then I switch sides. And it's like how people who convert to Catholicism are often the most rigid in their views and their beliefs about honestly whatever religion they convert to. It's like how 3 weeks ago when I converted to the KHive, I became one of their strongest soldiers and fighters. I was thoroughly convinced
because I chose that life.
Exactly, and I broke myself down. I tore myself down brick by brick to the axioms, and then I rebuilt them. You know what I mean? I rebuilt them on the new context that I exist in.
I'm an ideological chameleon. I can match any environment that I'm in. Speaking of Catholic converts, isn't JD Vance a Catholic convert?
I think so. Probably
he's
something
crazy.
We'll get more on him later.
Yeah,
but
we'll
man,
get to him.
Biden's out.
Biden's out. Are there any details that we're missing? I hope this has been coherent so far. Obviously, none of this is in the show notes because it just happened. So we're kind of just free balling this one, if you will. I don't know.
I'm praying for Harry Sisson. I'm praying for the Biden wins Twitter account.
Put them on suicide watch, yeah.
I am so I was prepared to come into this episode with a rant about just narratives that I've seen all week about why Biden should stay in. And the biggest one that has me genuinely just fucking tweaking every time I see it. It's like a trigger. I am the triggered lib when I see this talking point. And it's but did you guys see Biden at the NATO conference?
Yeah, unfortunately I did.
It's like, what? It wasn't that great. And two, nobody cares about policy.
Nobody,
unless people care about foreign policy. I don't understand how these Democrats, these sycophants in earnest can get up here and say, but you guys aren't paying attention to what he says about NATO. Because no one is. How many people do you know in your fucking real life when you go and walk out onto the street, when you go to your fucking friend's house, when you're talking about bullshit that are like, oh my God, yeah, Biden he really won me over with what he had to say about NATO. Hold the line. Finland has been NATOized, guys. Like the Finlandization of NATO. That's not a word I'm ever hearing outside of those circles.
Yeah.
And that narrative had me tweaking so bad, and I'm so glad they're silenced.
Yeah. That was a pretty rough one. The other one that really kept annoying me was when people would say that if you get rid of Joe Biden or if you push him out of the nomination, that's going to make a lot of black voters angry.
Oh, that was killing me
First of all, empirically, I don't think that's true. Based on polling data we have, it seemed like, I think it was like 50 or 60% of black voters generally wanted Biden to drop out of the race. Yeah. So just empirically, on the numbers, on the data front, that doesn't really make sense. But also, people like us and a lot of others were trying to push Joe Biden out for Kamala Harris to be the nominee.
Yeah.
And I know you can make an argument, kind of like what AOC was saying on her stupid ass Instagram live that she did.
Yeah, more on that later.
That people don't want Kamala Harris. They would try to gloss her over, and I do think that would be a really bad look after we've thought about it for a little while. But I think the vast majority of people trying to kick Biden out were aware that it was most likely going to be Kamala Harris with the nomination.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. Like when the debate first ended and we were thinking like, well, maybe they'll try to push Biden out. At first, I was like, Kamala Harris sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I came on that Sunday and said Kamala Harris sucks. God forbid she's the new nominee.
And to be fair, from a left-wing perspective, she's pretty bad. But after I saw a lot of people take the Biden should drop out narrative seriously, then I started to think, okay, maybe Kamala Harris wouldn't be such a bad candidate.
Yeah, and then the polling came out that supported that. And yes, polls are snapshots. They're not the entire narrative. Polls are often wrong. Polls are still a generally accepted metric to make some decisions, especially these internal polls that have been leaking that consistently had Kamala up outside the margin of error with independents.
Yeah,
and that's how we win elections.
I think we started the KHive episode, or the one after the debate, basically saying like, "I'm sorry, Madam Vice President, I didn't understand your game."
Exactly,
because like, if I'm being honest, the last we really like had discourse around Kamala Harris was during the primaries, where she deservedly got shit on from the left, from Bernie Sanders supporters. And by the way, I had thought following the debate that the Biden needs to drop out crowd would solely be people on the far left.
That's what I thought too.
But it was fucking leading the charge was Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama.
Behind the scenes. Like I never would have thought.
Couldn't have predicted this. All I'm going to say, hit an award show at the end of the year is going to be ridiculous.
It's the podcasting class did it.
Yes.
The podcasting class usurped the Democratic Party. Pod John's up 1,000 right now.
My favorite narrative, though, on Twitter was that the Democrats trying to push Joe Biden out are the same as the Republicans that did January 6th.
Oh my God, man. Oh my God.
And that trying to get Biden to drop out is the same as doing a coup within the Democratic Party. And that's,
oh my God.
It's like we're role playing. This is LARPing. None of this is real.
I had seen a lot of people come out and say that like, oh, but if Joe Biden drops out, that's just anti-democratic. There's a primary. Kind of. Like, I can kind of understand where you're getting at with this because, you think about it like that and it does kind of get fucked up. But that assumes that we had a serious primary, which we did not. I wish we would have.
We didn't have a serious primary. There was nobody that could have actually beaten Joe Biden or became the nominee that was running, like Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom, whoever else. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to happen because they would have been exiled from the party. The only people that actually put their names in the hat were Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips. People that obviously were not going to win the nomination. And also, there weren't nominating contests in every state. Florida didn't hold an election for the Democratic primary. So you can't say that they already chose Joe Biden. The nominations process clearly wasn't serious. As we said, it wasn't going to be because the incumbent, if they want it, they just get the nomination. That's how it always works. So to say that it's like blatantly anti-democratic to push Biden to drop out is silly. Also, on top of the fact that Joe Biden has to choose himself to drop out.
Yes.
Like,
nobody
we can't force him to
make him drop out.
Yeah, we didn't like just do a military style coup and now we have the military junta in charge. Yeah, exactly. The Clintons were on his side, by the way. But all I'm saying is that it was Joe Biden's choice. The nomination process, the Democratic primary that happened several months ago was never serious. And honestly, what we're about to see, if it's an open convention, is far more reflective of what the Democratic base actually wants than Biden ever just getting the nomination was going to be.
Man, it's just it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good, man. And I feel so vindicated against all those people on Twitter. I feel euphoric right now. Just I'm right. I was right.
Mm-hmm.
I was right. Oh my goodness, man. Mm-hmm. And it's the one argument that AOC brought up in her fucking live, which just not only was the live bad, but it's aged poorly.
I don't know why do that?
I don't know what possessed her to do that.
Does she not read the news?
She said she didn't read the news on that, and it's like, okay, maybe we should have just not went live here. Maybe we should have just not made this statement.
Completely uninformed on the topic, but let me talk.
Yeah, she's like, I don't watch TV, the news. I've been doing this thing in Puerto Rico. Like, okay, then let's not.
And like, I'm an AOC supporter. I think she's one of the best members of Congress.
I defended her last week.
But I don't know why she was like felt the need to come out and support Biden even harder when if you could just I don't know, talk to members of your party, you could tell that it was pretty imminent if it was going to, like, she's got more information than we do.
I genuinely
felt like it was imminent.
That she's isolated from, like, the things that Pelosi and Schumer are doing. And I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, the squad, those Democrats in the House are very much like a different type of left than what everyone else is, than the neoliberal left. But either way, the one argument that I was sympathetic, but I wasn't that sympathetic, it never changed my mind, but that I thought was like, okay, maybe you have a point here, was when she said that Joe Biden does really well with old voters. Mm-hmm. And old voters are a group that turns out much more reliably than everyone else. And it's like, okay, now we're actually making an argument from data, from statistics that you can contend with. But also, is Kamala going to depress the old vote?
Old voters are also very reliably Republican too. Like, it's not just a Democratic base, old people.
And it's like, I'm sorry, but there are a handful of people within the electorate, an insignificant handful of people that actually want Joe Biden so bad to where they would not vote for whoever the other Democrat is. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted Joe Biden, and that's what was so frustrating about all of this discourse going forward is people were gaslighting me into thinking that Joe Biden inspired anybody.
Yeah, and like I find it hard to believe that the core base of the Democratic Party, which isn't just old white people, by the way, but to the extent that old people are a part of the Democratic base, whatever, but I find it hard to believe that those base voters, the core electorate that Democrats appeal to, wouldn't turn out for Kamala Harris where they would turn out for Biden with Kamala Harris in the VP slot.
Yes.
Like, I feel like I don't, like, what are we talking about? Do we really think your most loyal voters are going to abandon you because it's not Biden anymore, even though Harris was Biden's VP? I just don't get it.
There's just it doesn't make any sense to think that way. And then you get into the aspect of like independence, because again, these races are won and lost on the margins. Mm-hmm. Partisans always vote partisanly. People don't defect in any meaningful way from there's not a huge swath of the electorate that is constantly flip-flopping between which party they vote for. And if they are, they're not a partisan, they're an independent. Mm-hmm. And that's the people you need to turn out. Joe Biden isn't getting anyone to turn out about this. And it brings me back to the NATO conference thing, right? And in Joe Biden's interview with Lester Holt this week.
That shit was terrible.
More on that later.
That might be the reason he dropped out.
Oh my God, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. He keeps bringing up this idea that since the debate, I did 22 live events with thousands of people. Okay, but you can tally up the viewership of every single one of those debates, and it will not equal the 50 million people that watched your fucking debate.
Might not even equal half of the views we got on our one TikTok.
Exactly.
And we're making fun of him.
Literally. And it's that. And I guarantee the media that covered those 22 events was not nearly as far-reaching as the media that covered the debate.
Yes.
That genuinely changed people's minds. After the debate, I had basically everyone I know who knows that I do this podcast and knows that I'm a fucking politics guy hit me up and was like, yeah, Joe Biden did not do that great, did he? And I was like, yeah, it's looking Jover.
Yeah.
nobody hit me up after the NATO conference and said, wow, he really showed a command of these issues.
Yeah, nobody hit me up and was like, yeah, my fears are assuaged.
Yeah.
I'm good for
holy
Joe.
shit. Did you see that NATO conference, though? The Finlandization of NATO. Like,
and again, as we said last week, we were grading that NATO performance on a massive curve. Like, oh, Biden did good compared to how awfully he did at the debate.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then he turned out on Lester Holt's show on Monday and did terribly again.
I guess, do we just talk about the Lester Holt show now?
Yeah, it's fine.
It was so... the Lester Holt interview was so bad in such a multitude of ways. That interview was damn near malevolent. you had Lester Holt getting Biden where I think he should have got him, which is the narrative that Biden is not fit to run. Mm-hmm. And you had Biden flubbing every single fucking answer, not able to get out a coherent sentence, not able to defend himself in any meaningful capacity. And then on the flip side of that, this was also after the Trump assassination attempt, Lester Holt was genuinely doing journalistic malpractice when he was asking these goddamn fucking questions. One of the things that he tried to nail Biden on, that, I mean, it kind of looks like he nailed him because Biden can't answer a goddamn question, was when he said, why did you say to put Trump in a bullseye in that donor hall?
Oh, that was stupid, dog.
Why the fuck are we giving legitimacy to that is a fringe right wing narrative. Yeah. That is not a narrative that is nearly as pervasive as, oh, the assassination was rigged, blah, 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 the Secret Service doing this, Secret Service person needs to be fired. That is a narrative that came up on Twitter that the fringes of the Republican Party believe in. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to legitimize that. Everyone knows, oh, we want to put him on the bullseye, put him in the crosshairs, is a fucking figure of speech.
Mm-hmm. It's aphorism, yeah.
It's how fucking people talk. Well, that does not incite political violence.
Yeah, it was bad for Lester Holt to even ask that question because it's obviously bad faith. Like the premise itself is bad faith, but the fact that Joe Biden couldn't articulate that it was purely a figure of speech and he was talking about refocusing the campaign and attacks onto Trump away from him is ridiculous.
Yes.
If you can't, it kind of feels like we're dancing on the grave of his campaign now. But if you can't articulate that, you can't be the nominee. And it looks like he agrees.
And I'm not switching up. I've been saying this.
Yes. 3 weeks, baby.
I've been saying this for the last 3 weeks.
2 episodes ago, Embracing the KHive was the title of the pod. I'm firmly in the KHive. I'm ensconced in the KHive. If anything, the far left is doing a coup of the centrist KHive.
Oh my God.
It's ours now.
We were just talking about how in France, the fucking centrist neoliberals and the communists rallied together to defeat the far right. And you know what? Maybe that's what's going on with the KHive. I said I couldn't imagine. Here I am, existing within the context of it happening.
I think it was, I hope I don't get the history wrong, but American Revolution inspired the French Revolution.
Exactly.
And now the French, strategic voting is inspiring American strategic voting. What can I say, baby? We're so back. Within me lives an infinite we're so back.
Oh my God. In the midst of the deepest Jover. In the midst of the deepest Jover.
Stoked by the flame of ambition, baby. Yes. Come on.
But like, Jesus Christ, I was genuinely floored watching that fucking Lester Holt interview.
It was bad, yeah.
Because again, Biden sucked. But why are we actually pinning this narrative that Democrats and Joe Biden specifically have such fiery rhetoric that inspired a Republican to shoot Trump?
That's what I'm saying. The fact that Lester Holt didn't say anything about him being a registered Republican, and the fact that Joe Biden couldn't get there, it just amazes me. Like, how could it be that Joe Biden, through his fiery rhetoric, quote unquote, inspired a registered Republican in Pennsylvania to take a shot at Donald Trump? Like Lester Holt, why are you asking about that? Joe Biden, why can't you clear the record here?
That just never should be a serious fucking talking point. That Democrats with their rhetoric have inspired this. Saying that it's the bullseye email, which was an email to donors, wasn't it? It wasn't even like a...
he was talking to donors.
He was talking to donors. He wasn't talking to Republicans in fucking Pennsylvania. He was talking to donors.
He wasn't talking to the director of the FBI.
Exactly. Oh my God, man. It's so infuriating. We never should have even got there.
Lester Holt sucks so bad, dog.
That is such an additional level of asinine than even the regular premise, because there's also a lot of discourse that was going on about Democrats are literally calling Trump Hitler. Of course someone's going to do something about it. And it's like, well, I think it's okay to call someone Hitler when they're acting like Hitler. You know what I mean? And two, you're not even talking about that. You're talking about the bullshit. You're talking about put Trump in the crosshairs. And then there was something else Joe Biden said that Republicans have like latched onto. I can't remember what it was though, but man, I was just so disappointed by that interview in such a multitude of ways.
Well, it's like they call Biden an authoritarian. They've compared Biden to Hitler or Stalin before. Like it's all bad faith. It's a tried and true method since the end of World War II to call your opponent Hitler.
Exactly.
Like LBJ, he didn't call his opponent Hitler. He said Barry Goldwater would nuke your children. Like he said, Barry Goldwater. He had an ad that he put out where it's a little girl like counting petals on a flower or whatever, and then a nuke goes off, and he said, "This is what Barry Goldwater's going to do."
That's fucking gas.
And he won the election.
And that's good. And nobody got shot.
No,
nobody got shot.
Like,
notably,
this is America.
This is America.
What happened to free speech?
What happened to illustrative, figurative language? Oh my goodness, man! Why?
And it also feels like, in terms of like the right-wing narratives on the Trump assassination attempt, it also feels like the right doesn't really believe that Joe Biden, through his fiery rhetoric, encouraged a shooter. No, not only because it was a registered Republican, but also because it's fucking Joe Biden.
Yeah.
The guy you say is sleepy that can't get out a sentence, which to be fair, you really can't nowadays. You think he's the one that encouraged a shooter? Like, come on, man.
The only thing Biden could encourage is for fucking Nancy Pelosi to get her shit together and get him out.
I'm impressed that Nancy. I didn't respect her game before, but she really pulled it off. That's
I knew
crazy.
she was a big like behind the scenes person. I knew she was really good at fundraising. Well, that's like her thing, isn't it?
Fundraising.
She's like the best fundraiser that the party has ever seen. Of course, she's making fucking donor phone calls and figuring shit out. Like shout out Nancy.
The donor class won. The revolutionary donor class.
Oh my God.
I can't believe it.
AOC and her live. If you don't know, AOC went on Instagram Live. Oh God, sometime in like the middle to
like
late
Saturday, right?
It was it?
Or Friday?
No, I watched it on Saturday.
It was Friday then.
It was sometime like later in the week, but before the weekend, I think. Like Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, that she went on Instagram Live, basically just to show her support for Biden's candidacy and talk about why everyone who thinks Biden should step down could be wrong and how they're not considering different things. One, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar has made similar statements, and it's like we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Actually, every week since we embraced the KHive, that it probably would be a bad strategy electorally for the progressive members to call for Biden to step down publicly because there's some complexities there. You may get the more centrist libs to be a bit reactionary about that because they don't like AOC in the squad, whatever. And I thought it was just strategy. They'd been strategically silenced, and maybe in the background they were hedging bets on, okay, if Biden wins, we're going to get X concessions from him. Apparently not. Apparently she just genuinely believes these things.
Yeah, it was hard for me to tell as well because she was making all of the tired arguments that we had already seen, like there was already a nomination process, there was already a primary. She was talking about being on the Ohio ballot, which had already been resolved by the time she was doing that Instagram Live. So I don't know why she did that. She was talking about the virtual roll call, which I have in the show notes here, was canceled by the time she was talking about that. Like that wasn't an issue at that point. So I don't really know what she was going on about. But yeah, like you, I had thought that it was just some political positioning to make it so moderates would continue to call on Biden to drop out, and they could also extract some concessions by seeming like they were pro-Biden and saying like, oh, we'll support you and we won't call on you to drop out as long as you start talking about Supreme Court reform. Yeah. You talk more about raising the minimum wage or descheduling marijuana or, whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't require you to come out with a full-throated defense of Joe Biden on Instagram Live for an hour.
Exactly.
And that's what AOC did.
I don't know how you can even muster the talking points to defend Joe Biden for an hour, especially in the state that he was in a couple days ago.
Yeah.
A couple days before he dropped out, mind you. She had talked about how she's talking to people who actually work in government, and they don't have a plan. Nobody really has a plan right now. Are we sure we want to go through this when there's no plan? And it's like, it kind of just reeked entirely of she does not know what's going on with the senior members of the party. She does not know what Nancy Pelosi's doing. Like,
I hate the talking point that's like, oh, we don't even know what we would do at the convention. The convention has a process for when there's no candidate yet.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the convention is for. I just don't fucking understand. Like, if Biden drops out, we're not going to know what to do. It's going to be complete chaos. No, the delegates will be free and they'll choose somebody else. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't get this argument that it's like, well, we'll have no nominee. We won't know what we're doing. It's clearly going to be Kamala Harris, and the delegates will be free to choose her, and they probably will. Like it's really not that complicated. There's plenty of time to do it. There's 4 weeks until the convention starts, and after that, there's like 3 months left in the campaign season or in the election season. So there's plenty of time to do it. I don't know what motivated her to do. Did she get paid? What's going on?
There's no way. I think maybe she's just out of touch with the issue.
Yeah.
To be defending Joe Biden of all people for an hour, like that's why I say, like I cannot believe I am on Nancy Pelosi's side and not AOC's side.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't know what explains it.
It's a backwards week, people.
Yeah.
We're in the upside down.
Oh boy. Well, there's a lot that's going to happen between now and the Democratic convention. Keep your eyes peeled, I suppose. Once we find out like when the big dates of the DNC will be, like where it's not just boring speeches and like fun stuff is happening.
Yes.
Maybe we can schedule a live stream for that or something.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Maybe we can make another fundraiser out of it. I don't know. But keep your ear to the ground.
Yes. See,
we'll keep doing our thing.
Geeked because does this mean we restart debates? Because the Joe Biden-Trump debate was historically
Could we
early.
get some Democratic primary debates?
Can we get a primary debate in like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
2 weeks before the convention, you know what I mean?
Come
But it's
on.
like that June 27th debate was historically early. And, maybe this all gives credence to the idea that they wanted him out beforehand.
Nah, whoever in Biden's campaign scheduled that is a genius. Like, Democratic strategist is a real job again.
Hey, finally, it's a real job just for these specific people.
Like I don't know who was behind that, because like Biden doesn't handle scheduling. Whoever was behind that is a master at politics.
Oh my God.
They saw the writing on the wall. They knew what they had to do. They understood the assignment and they got it done, and they gave everyone a chance to figure this shit out and led us to this moment. Whoever scheduled that, whoever put that on the calendar said, guys, we got to do it before he's officially the nominee. Kudos to you. My hat's off. You are a member of the proletariat.
We got to do it so we have enough time to have long discourse about whether or not he should step down, and then he steps down, and then we have about a month to figure out who the next person is. We got to do that. You should retire now because that's the apex of your career.
Yeah. You saved America.
Genuinely hero. We're giving out congressional medals of honor this episode. Giving them to that guy, giving them to Obama, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, the three fucking goats.
They saved us.
Oh my God, man.
Now, of course, there's a lot of work to do. It's not a given that Kamala Harris is going to win, even though she is polling ahead of Biden in basically every swing state, and according to a lot of different polls, at least. Still lots of work to do, still lots to figure out. Again, there's going to be developments between the end of this recording and Wednesday when this episode comes out. So if some stuff is off that we've said, if it comes out that there's not going to be an open convention, whatever.
We're actually going with Pete Buttigieg.
Then then we will address it on the next episode. But look, I'm glad the news got in.
That's good.
It's huge.
This would have been a painful one to miss.
Yes.
I'd have been very upset.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Do you ever think, I want to buy my way into heaven?
Always.
I want to buy my way into the good graces of the people that I'm listening to in my ears right now.
That's right.
You can do that if you head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. And not only will you be supporting the show, not only will you get early access to all of the content that we produce, but you'll also get an ad-free experience on the Patreon every Sunday, every time we release an episode.
You'll be able to pull up to the sermon on Sunday, on the Lord's Day, to hear the gospel as it's spoken.
Yeah, no more being late, no more interruptions mid-episode if you're listening to this ad right now.
Exactly.
It's on patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's one of the best ways to support the show. It's one of the longest enduring ways to support the show.
Help buy a pass from all the sins you've committed. Start coming to church.
Yeah.
And we can get things going.
Yeah, that's only if you head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. It's in the description. It's there for you. I guess that means then we can move on to something I think that's going to be quickly forgotten.
I think so too. And you know what? That's the strategy. That's what we had been talking about. We're like, okay, maybe they're waiting until after the RNC. I don't think it was an actual genuine bit of strategy, but it works out that way. I mean, I think Joe Biden was generally stubborn up until now.
Yeah,
but like. This is the news, baby.
Well, and to be fair, Joe Biden in that George Stephanopoulos interview said that he would only drop out if the Lord Almighty told him to. And then he got fucking COVID. The Lord Almighty. And look, I'm not the type that'll be like, when right-wingers often do this thing where, when a gay person gets some kind of disease, it's like, well, God chose for you to be punished or whatever. That's not what I'm doing. But Joe Biden did say Lord Almighty's got to strike me down.
Exactly.
And, it happened.
Unlike when people push that onto gay people. He brought it on himself. He called for that to happen.
Yeah, that you can't just do that.
That's a called shot right there.
That's a called shot, and that's also a brave thing to do when you're, 81, 82? You can't be saying, like, Lord Almighty is the only one that can stop me when you're that old.
Because there's a lot of plausible deniability for the Lord to act at that age.
But that's enough yapping about the Democrats and the Democratic convention coming up in a month. The RNC just finished, and I think that we got to talk about this because we did get some news from the Republicans, but right now it's hard to even focus on them because Democrats up $1 trillion.
And it's like the news that did come out of the RNC wasn't even like that crazy.
It was like a lot of what we got and what we'll listen to from the RNC was either unserious or just genuinely funny to see.
Yeah.
Like none of it was like, oh, that's a serious political party.
Or just bad political strategy.
Yes.
Like Trump's VP pick.
Yeah,
like,
really bad. Really bad. So last week, the RNC was held in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It featured 4 nights and even 5 nights if you count the fact that Trump's speech went into the next day.
Oh my God.
Because it was so goddamn long. I tried to listen to all of it. I couldn't.
I didn't. I kept checking in. And then I checked in another hour later, and then I checked in again, and it was still going. I was like, guys, I can't do this.
I listened to maybe 45 minutes, but it was one of the worst Trump speeches I've heard.
I listened to the first bit where he's talking about, like, I'll recount the day. It was a beautiful day in Pennsylvania, Butler County, beautiful Butler County.
Yeah, that was a good part of it. It was so sleepy, though.
Yeah.
Sleepy Trump, sleepy Don.
Sleepy Trump.
But anyways, we got 4 nights of speeches, 5 nights of speeches from supporters and elected officials, including Trump's VP pick, which is JD Vance, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
The theme of this year's RNC was unity following the Trump assassination attempt, but I'm not too sure that the unity theme was followed or adhered to.
I gotta wonder what the theme was before the assassination attempt, because that's very much obviously a last minute addition.
And a lot of the
weren't
speeches
going for that before.
A lot of the speeches were very obviously last minute rewritten to accommodate the fact that Trump was shot in the ear.
Which,
you know
I mean, makes sense. I understand it, but like I wonder what the theme could have been before this.
And the reason I bring that up is because like it felt like in JD Vance's speech, in a lot of the speeches, in Trump's speech too, it was just kind of all over the place thematically. Yeah. Like obviously you want to do the unity thing because it's like we got to bring Americans together. You got to utilize the perception of you as a victim to motivate people to come and support you, and you can do that through the unity theme. Vote. Yeah, win the sympathy vote. But it felt like a lot of speeches were pre-written, obviously, like before the assassination attempt, and they were just altered to fit in the fact that Trump was almost assassinated. It made it feel all over the place. Like it just, I mean, surprising Republicans weren't cogent in their speeches, but it felt more so off than what would have been. So I don't know. It was weird. It was weird.
A lot of mid, a whole lot of mid. They were having a mid off.
Yeah. There were various speakers that kept hitting on this unity theme. I think it kind of fell flat. I don't think it really works either for the modern day Republican Party. Maybe this would have worked for like a Mitt Romney Republican Party.
Absolutely.
Or John McCain Republican Party. But nowadays I just don't think it works.
It's like, not to be a political polarization guy, but like the Republican Party is so controversial for basically anyone who's not within it. They are the last people that can pull the unity message. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it barely even works when Democrats try to do it.
And that was Joe Biden's message in 2020.
That was Joe Biden's message in 2020. Guy. And I don't think that the unity message is what won in the election. I think what won in the election is the idea that he's not Donald Trump. It was damn near a rejection of unity. You know what I mean? And especially followed by the 2022 midterms when Democrats sweeped when there was supposed to be a fucking red wave or whatever. Like, I feel like these have very much just been rejections of unity.
A thing that Joe Biden takes responsibility for. By the way, he takes credit for the blue wave, or I guess the fact that there wasn't a red wave. He's like, that was me.
I'm glad he's out.
Rather than a rejection or a sort of, it happened in spite of him, I would say.
Yes.
But whatever.
Damn near everything that has happened has been a rejection of conservatism. I don't think that they can be the people who try to claim, no, guys, actually, like, let's bring it all together.
Yeah, and Kamala Harris, our president, the future president, Madam President, she actually had a pretty good response to the message before she had been endorsed by Biden as the new nominee, basically just saying unity for who, which I think is the right way to deal with this.
Perfect.
Right? Is Republicans are saying, oh, we need to unite, but like, what does unity mean for the people that are losing reproductive rights, for the communities that'll be torn apart after mass deportation efforts, for trans folk that can't get gender affirming care, for working class folks that have higher taxes because taxes were cut on the rich? Like, who does this unity work for? It's not most Americans.
I think that message is also so much more salient coming from Kamala Harris,
Yes.
coming from a black woman. Like she will be able to campaign on abortion harder than Joe Biden would be able to. You know what I mean?
100%.
These messages, to an extent, the messenger does matter in a lot of these instances, and that's something you can't ignore, especially when talking about broad trends talk about a presidential election that will potentially wreak like 150 million Americans. You know what I mean? Like these things can't be ignored. Like the messenger does matter to an extent, and Kamala Harris is a very good person to deliver a message like unity for who.
Yeah.
Joe Biden says it. One, he's going to say it bad because he sucks.
Yeah.
And two, it's kind of disingenuous.
And he'll say it wrong.
He'll
say the wrong word.
He'll say unity.
It was. I knew it was.
Finally beat Medicare.
I knew it was especially Jover because of that Lester Holt interview, and also, did you happen to see like the Oval Office address?
No, I didn't.
On I think either Sunday or Monday after the Trump assassination attempt.
Okay.
And he kept saying we have to beat him at the battle box.
Oh, I did see that actually.
And he started off by saying former Trump was almost assassinated.
Former Trump. We got to beat him at the battle bus, people.
We gotta beat him.
Got to beat him at the battle bus. If the Fortnite generation could vote. Oh my God. Maybe we should have kept him in.
We got to put a Kamala Harris skin in Fortnite. It's over after she wins the election. She wins 400 electoral votes with that one.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, man. And then we're investing in her re-election bid in 2028. Oh my God, it would be so good.
So also there were, I don't want to go through everything in the RNC. A lot of it was just a glaze fest. Some of it, which it gets so glazy.
Yes.
We can't even show that on YouTube because we'll get demonetized.
Oh my God,
I'm saying. But there were a couple of funny moments I wanted to point out. Good moments for us. One of them was from friend of the show, Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know if you've seen this clip yet.
I haven't seen his speech.
Okay, he gave a speech. I want to take a look at about a 30-second clip from Vivek where he's got some advice for the youngins.
Let's go.
Some advice for Gen Z. So let's take a listen to this.
Our message to Gen Z is this. You're going to be the generation that actually saves this country.
Really?
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative. Say you want to get married, have kids, teach them to believe in God and pledge allegiance to their country. Because you know what? Fear has been infectious in this country, but courage can be contagious too. That too is what it means to be an American.
If you want to be a rebel, fall in line.
It's so corny.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be anti-establishment? Obey your master.
You want to be a rebel? How about you embrace traditional family values? How about you want to be a rebel? How about you, I don't know, teach your kids to believe in the Christian God?
Yeah, you guys want to be a rebel? Why don't you respect parents? Why don't you respect your parents more?
Pledge allegiance to your country. Rebels, famous for pledging allegiance to their country. It's so fucking funny. Vivek is so corny.
The conservatism is punk rock narrative has been one that's just existed in the background for a while now, and it always gets me. It never fails to make me laugh because conservatism is, one, literally antithetical to what punk rock is, and two, the people who say this are always the most milquetoast people.
It's just so funny. You're like, you want it. Like all rebels throughout all of history have been conservative.
And it's like, really, nobody stands for the pledge anymore. Brother, everybody in high school stood for the fucking pledge. I stopped doing it my senior year because it was just corny. Like, it felt corny. And it's like, even that, it's like, I didn't feel like a fucking rebel. I just didn't want to stand up anymore. Oh my God. But everyone else did.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a good moment from Vivek. Another fantastic moment was from another friend of the show, John James.
Yes.
John James, for some reason, was given a speaking part at the RNC. I'm guessing because
that guy has failed his way to the top.
Yeah,
like,
really
I
has.
don't understand.
He really has. I think the RNC was trying. I don't really know exactly what they were trying to do because they had like Amber Rose.
Oh my God, I saw
RNC.
that too.
They had John James at the RNC. I feel like they are. Trying to, I felt like they were tokenizing a lot, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, and it's like, did you see the biggest, I guess, example? Did you see the sick prayer that happened at the RNC?
I did, yeah.
And just the absolute backlash that they got for having a non-Christian religious.
They got backlash from their own people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't see that.
It was nuts. There was like a huge controversy within the Republican Party, within the far right elements, which, I mean, let's be real, all of them.
Yeah.
Being mad that there was somebody who wasn't a Christian that gave a prayer, led a prayer at the RNC.
It's like your platform for obviously a very long time, but especially the last 4 years has explicitly been anti-inclusion. You have been pro-exclusion in your party platform. You've railed against DEI for the last several years. Of course, your own base is going to hate it when you have a non-Christian do a prayer.
I genuinely don't know what they expected.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a situation where they like invited them, because it's the woman who did it is like a ranking member within the RNC, in the Republican National Committee. So maybe she just did it, but it's like, come on, you can't tell me you don't know your own base well enough to not know that this wouldn't go over. That crowd was white. That crowd was crazy.
Super white. But speaking of super white crowds, John James gave a really banger line to this super white crowd.
Okay.
It's only this clip's only a few seconds long, if I can find it, about 17 seconds long, but he gave a really good line, and I felt like we couldn't pass it up. It's John James.
All right, lay it on me.
A Michigan native.
A Michigan native, great guy.
Let's take a listen to what he's got to say.
Look. Yeah, I heard a little bit earlier today, if you don't vote for Donald Trump, you ain't black.
Oh God, what's he gonna say?
No, that's he just did that line, and it's just a sea of white people. That's good.
I didn't even fucking comprehend. Oh my God.
Yeah, he did the Joe Biden line.
It pans to the white guy who's smiling like, yeah, I can say it now. I can say it.
Yeah, the reason I clipped that is because he did the Biden thing. He's ripping off what Biden said. Of course, when Joe Biden said it, it was egregious.
It was bad.
It was really bad when Biden said it.
It was bad and genuinely racist.
But it's funny. It's really funny when John James, a man who lost 1 million Michigan races for political office, gets at the RNC and says that to a sea of white people. I thought it was good.
And then the camera can't even find the black person in the crowd to point at.
Yep.
It goes to just the whitest looking man who's smiling because he knows he can say it now.
Yeah, then it pans out and it's just all white people in the crowd. It's good. Now, the last piece of glazing that we should take a look at, and this is Tim Scott. This is really glazing.
Man, Tim Scott, that shit was...
Did you see this?
I saw this one.
This is going to be a rough listen, but I want you all to try to get through it because it's really indicative of where the Republican Party is vis-a-vis Donald Trump, and I couldn't let Tim Scott get away without us making fun of him on this episode.
No, absolutely not.
So let's take a listen to what Tim Scott had to say at the RNC.
Because on Saturday, the devil came to Pennsylvania holding a rifle, but an American lion got back up on his feet and he roared! Oh yeah! He roared!
What are you doing, man? The glazing is crazy.
When he first came on, like when he first opened up his speech and he's walking out and he's like, I'm glad this country still believes in the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Like, genuinely, he sounds like a WWE announcer.
Yeah,
he could have made a career with Vince McMahon.
It's just he tried and failed to run in the Republican primary. He was glossed over for the VP slot.
Although he would have been a better pick.
And he certainly would have been a better pick. And now he's here literally doing tricks on it. Like, what?
Like, it's
he
not
wants a cabinet spot so badly. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness, man. Tim Scott, that's a Hito favorite right there.
Tim Scott's a Hito favorite. Man, what a crazy guy.
Barely a participant in this entire process, but gets on there damn near with the most energy.
And like
he's happy to be around.
You remember when he got engaged like a few days before he dropped out to beat the gay allegations?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Did the engagement fall through?
I don't know.
Or is that still going on?
I gotta feel like it was purely a political stunt.
Absolutely.
Like he paid somebody. You wouldn't know her. She goes to another school. One other note on the RNC, the crowd itself was completely unhinged.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't know if you saw all of this, but a bunch of them had ear bandages on, I guess in solidarity with Donald Trump.
All the delegates had ear bandages on.
That shit was very, very corny. It was funny.
If a Democrat did that, I feel like that'd be all over Fox News, and they would be talking about how insane this behavior is, because it is insane behavior. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
And then I also saw there were a bunch of mass deportation now signs, which is just unfathomably evil. Absolutely insane. You are literally calling for the mass displacement of millions of people through a violent deportation scheme, and you are proud enough of that position to put it on signs and hold them up at your party convention.
Like, damn near every speaker that I had listened to had something to say about how we need to deport literally everyone, every brown person right now. Fucking absolutely wicked, man. Absolutely wicked.
And like, if what we've seen in Gaza is any indication, you can't move millions of people that easily.
No.
It will be incredibly violent and incredibly dangerous.
And an incredible burden on the American taxpayer.
Most importantly, and it spend so much money on that.
If we're fucking talking in terms that they can understand and empathize with, do you know how fucking expensive it would be to deport 20 million people? I don't think they understand the administrative undertaking that would be. The bureaucratic state is already in disarray.
Not to mention all the false positives that we would get with people calling the hotline because their neighbor looks Mexican. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that it would be an enormous cost and would cause an enormous amount of pain, and the fact that the Republicans are proud enough to put that on signs and jeer about how excited they are to deport millions of people is insane, and it is nothing short of ethnic cleansing.
I was going to say it's damn near the evil convention, but I mean, that's kind of explicitly what it is.
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene had a speech, and I think, did you see Marjorie Taylor Greene's speech?
She was holding back something crazy.
Oh my God, I know.
In her smiling Titan smile,
eyes.
looking like Dana. That was her name, right?
Dana Kruger.
Yeah, yeah.
She's walking through ready to chomp on something. What she's going to chomp on is a slur, but she knew she couldn't let that one out.
Not yet.
In this moment,
but once we get the DEI president, like,
oh my goodness, the statements she'll have leaked is insane. But no, she just got up there and she was just doing transphobia. She got up there and didn't she do the slippery slope thing? Where she's like, they wanted us to accept gay people, and now we have transgenders.
Classic.
There are only two genders. Oh my goodness, man. She's the worst.
Yeah, she's bad, but it was real rough. Yeah, that's the evil party. And the one other note, I guess, was the Teamsters speech, which was, before we get to JD Vance, the one other thing is the Teamsters speech. That was bad.
And while I was going to say, all of the stuff we've talked about up until now is bad. Like, the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing is bad in a way that, like, that is bad rhetoric. That is abhorrent rhetoric. I don't understand how people can think that way. It's genuinely fucking evil,
It's
right?
just who the Republicans are, though, you know?
Exactly. And that's kind of my point, is that's who the people she's speaking to are. That's what Republicans are kind of about.
Yeah,
at least the type
bigotry.
of Republican that's going to tune into a fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene speech in earnest. Like, she's not really reaching anyone else with that. She's not extending an olive branch when she talks about how transgenders are literally evil.
And she's not trying to, yeah.
But the Teamster speech, genuinely the most damaging speech of the entire RNC. Yeah. Oh my God, it was so fucking bad. And this week I was just tweaking between the Biden discourse, the Lester Holt interview, and fucking Sean O'Malley and his thumb looking ass getting on there and talking about
Sean O'Brien.
Yeah. Sean O'Brien.
Yeah.
Too many Seans.
Too many Seans.
What I mean?
Sean Fain, Sean O'Brien.
Two Seans leading unions. One of them radical Marxist, radical revolutionary.
The other one
Marxist.
a National Socialist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Precisely. But either way, damn near the most surprising thing out of this entire convention. Never in a million years would I have thought that the president of one of the largest unions in the country, if not the fucking world, would go and speak at the RNC and actively praise fucking Donald Trump and the Republicans.
And the vice presidential pick, yeah.
And JD Vance. Backwards week. Absolutely backwards week, man. I can't get over it. I'm fucking losing my mind.
The Twilight
right?
Zone for politics
and it's
this
like,
week.
This guy, Sean, in his fucking speech, Sean O'Brien, got up and praised Josh Hawley.
Yes.
He got up and said, I'd like to give a special shout out to Josh Hawley and the 8 Republican senators who helped railroad Teamsters in the fight for paid sick leave, Hawley being one of them. He then praised him for showing up to a Teamsters and a UAW picket line and for, quote, questioning corporations with pointed questions. In other words, Josh Hawley offered meaningless platitudes. That's it. And that's all he could say about Republicans.
This dude would have praised Hitler.
Yeah, I'm saying.
And like, I'm not just saying that to say that. Like, all you got to do is, offer some platitudes, question some corporations publicly, and you get the support of the Teamsters. Like, that's all it takes, regardless of your voting record, which for Josh Hawley and JD Vance is very poor on unions.
That's what I'm fucking about to get into, right? Like, his entire praise for Hawley and whatever other pro-union GOP members they are, even though that's damn near a fucking oxymoron, is, well, they said said some workers should get a sick day, which is the bare fucking minimum, and maybe they show up to a picket line here and there. And then he mentioned how Josh Hawley changed his position on right to work, although there's no voting record that would even come close to backing that.
He hasn't had to put that belief on the record at all.
In other words, worthless fucking platitudes. Because not a single bit of Sean's speech, the Teamsters president's speech, focused on policy that the GOP supported, policy that not even the GOP supports writ large, but maybe that individual senators support. No, not a fucking lick of it, because the GOP has no backbone to stand on when it comes to that. There was not a single Republican in either chamber, the fucking House or the Senate, that voted for the PRO Act.
Yeah.
Every single Republican voted against the PRO Act. Would have been landmark pro-union legislation.
Importantly, 49 of the people that caucus with the Democrats voted for the PRO Act. The only people that didn't were Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin.
Yes.
And it's silly that he got on there and would even subtly indicate that the Democrats and Republicans both are too tied to corporate interests.
Oh, and he said explicitly that there are far too many people on both sides who are anti-union.
It's not a both sides issue.
No,
it simply isn't.
It's like, sure, I mean, sometimes there are Democrats that aren't as pro-union as I would like them to be, but the most anti-union Democrat is still functionally more pro-union than the most pro-union Republican, at least in the Senate. And at least when we look at legislation, again, look at how the PRO Act panned out. The only two, there were 3 Democrats in total throughout the bicameral legislature that did not vote for it. 1 Democrat in the House didn't vote for it because they had some concerns about effects on small businesses in their constituency, whatever. And then Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, 2 people who are damn near not Democrats.
Well, they aren't anymore, right? They're independents now.
I think so. Yeah. I know Joe Manchin is explicitly an independent. I don't know about Kyrsten Sinema. I know the Arizona Democratic Party removed their backing from her. We covered that 2 years ago after all this bullshit.
Yep.
But you cannot say that conservatives have done anything fucking meaningful when it comes to this.
Well, and they have done meaningful things, and it's been anti-union.
Oh, yes.
Like
yes,
Donald
that's what
Trump
I mean.
appointed explicitly anti-union people to the NLRB. Donald Trump has been actively hostile to unions in his policies and in his rhetoric.
Yeah.
Like it's obvious that Republicans are far more hostile to unions than Democrats are, and there are way, way, way more Democrats who are open to pro-union policies that have voted for pro-union policies than Hawley or Vance combined.
Literally 98 to 99% of Democrats pro-union policies voted for one of the most radically pro-union pieces of legislation ever.
I think JD Vance has like a 0 score from the AFL-CIO.
Yeah.
Like he's
Nice.
terrible.
And he got on there and in his speech at the RNC talked about how, unions and workers and blah, blah, blah. And this speech by Sean, the Teamsters president, gives legitimacy to the things that Donald Trump and JD Vance say about being pro-worker and pro-union, despite their record of being vehemently anti. And I wanted to get into that. Trump's NLRB routinely and expeditiously overturned precedent in favor of employers and overall made it significantly harder for unions to organize and bargain. In their overturning of precedent, they disregarded any of the formal processes or not formal, but informal processes like getting amicus briefs from people when we want to overturn precedent to see if that would be a popular solution to it. They just unilaterally did it. Trump's appointee to general counsel, which is the person who heads the NLRB and is tasked with prosecuting on behalf of workers who have been mistreated by employers, his name was Peter Robb. And you know what he came up doing? He was a management lawyer.
Oh, yeah, okay. He was a demon.
He was a fucking demon. And one of his, a hallmark achievements was being instrumental in getting unionized air traffic control workers fired after a strike in 1981.
He did the Reagan thing.
Exactly. That is who Trump appointed to be the head of the National Labor Relations Board. The NLRB is the institution that is most consequential when it comes to the day-to-day activity of unions and the things that actually change. Yep. It's not legislation. It's not Congress. I would like for pro-union legislation to pass. But if we're talking about how things realistically are going to change with shifting precedents, it's with the NLRB. And Biden's, again, the most pro-union president in fucking modern American history.
Yeah, and not to mention Biden's NLRB, which has been instrumental in recent unionization efforts for the last 4 years.
Not only have they reversed the absolute killing that Trump's NLRB did to just the right to organize and bargain, but they have been so radically pro-labor that when Starbucks was caught union busting, they made every single Starbucks store in the country put up a 13-page notice listing all of the things that Starbucks did to union bust.
Yeah.
And they made Howard Schultz, the CEO, and like someone else that's high up within Starbucks show up to a hearing where they were read all of the things that they did to union bust on video, and then distributed that video to every single Starbucks employee to name and shame them. That is how radically pro-worker the Biden's NLRB has been.
And that's good.
And that's perfect. That's what we want. That's what we need, because the balance of power has been shifted so far in employers, on employer sides.
Not to mention that Donald Trump is a billionaire.
Yes.
You know, like Donald Trump's a billionaire. He is the leader of the party that hates unions and organized labor. It's silly to even look. I could have excused the Teamsters president from going to the RNC if he went there explicitly to shred them apart.
Yes, if he called out their legislative record, if he called out Trump's NLRB, but instead his overarching message was, I don't want to close any doors when it comes to I'm a negotiator, so I don't want to close any doors. It's like, I guess I kind of understand. Maybe he's hedging his bets on Trump winning, but he's making it easier for Trump to win by giving legitimacy to that party being pro-worker. When not, literally, not a single one is in any meaningful capacity, any meaningful legislative capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hate this idea that organized labor as a sort of entity isn't politically oriented. Yes. Like, there's obviously politics involved, and they can position themselves as just like, oh, we don't want to be involved in the political process. That's fine. But your existence in the activity that you do, your opposition to the power of employers is political. And within the political spectrum, your needs, desires, and interests fall on the left. And if you're going to collaborate with the right, they will eat you alive when they get the chance. It is damn near just, you're being a class traitor. It's class collaborationism.
Oh no, the leopards ate my face.
Yes.
I don't know what we expect. Again, like 98 to 99%. I think it is literally 99% of Democrats within the legislature from 2020 to 2022 voted in favor of the PRO Act. 100% of conservatives voted against it.
Yes.
They are the reason that it did not pass. Like, they are the reason that you, Sean, do not have better protections for your workers. And now you're praising them because they give you platitudes. They give you lip. He even got up there and talked about how talk isn't cheap in D.C., blah, blah, blah. It's all about legislation. Why aren't we talking about it? He got up there and he said some good things. He said some things about workers need to blah, blah, blah. The balance of power needs to shift a little bit. We're selling out the American worker, which is true. But this means nothing if you're making it easier to sell out the American worker.
Well, and you know, I'm skeptical of that because, one, why didn't you go up there and just, again, read off the legislative record of like top Republicans or Josh Hawley or previous speakers that were at the RNC? Why didn't you say, well, he voted against this, he voted against the PRO Act, so on and so on? But it also, that fact makes me feel like he just kind of happened into the right positions by virtue of him being a union president.
I think so.
And that if he wasn't a union president, he would just be a Republican.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like his job demands that he does this kind of rhetoric. You know what I mean? Talk about the working class, which is good. But union bosses historically haven't always been progressives.
Yes.
They've been power hungry types. And it seems like that's what this guy is because he's getting a lot of backlash from his union right now, too. I think the vice president wrote a letter that they're going to run against him for the president position in 2026.
And they oughta.
Because of this speech.
It's so genuinely bad. This speech could... There are so many union guys that will vote however their union tells them to vote. If the Teamsters somehow, I don't think they'll go as far as explicitly endorsing Donald Trump. I think they might just not endorse if this is what they're doing, if they're hedging on maybe Trump winning, if union leadership is doing that. You could siphon off thousands of votes in places like Michigan, fucking Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. You can siphon off thousands of votes in swing states that genuinely matter. What is it? Joe Biden won by 6,000 votes? Some shit like that.
It was like 40,000
like 40,000 votes across
states.
the swing states. Like
Wisconsin
the states that mattered.
Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia were like razor thin.
Yeah,
margins,
like we cannot afford to be giving lip to the idea that Republicans are so pro-worker. We cannot be doing this. It is genuinely irresponsible.
Yeah, it's irresponsible, and again, it's like class collaboration, right? It's like the unions or the workers that partnered with the Nazi Party because they gave lip service to. I mean, they called themselves National Socialists, right, quote unquote. But when time came to actually give benefits to the working class, they killed all the actual socialists in their ranks.
Yeah, they barged into the
because
fucking
they were never
trade
serious.
union offices,
Yeah.
and they seized all their assets and fucking killed them.
It's what right-wing populists do.
Yeah.
They pander to the working class because they recognize the working class is the political class. In a democracy, they hold the political power. The voters do. But then when time comes to give them their benefits to actually do what you promised to do, they kill the opposition and they don't give you anything they promised.
And it's like, I don't understand how he get up there and praise JD Vance.
Yeah.
For saying he's pro-union. JD Vance wasn't in the Senate when he would have had the opportunity to vote for the PRO Act, but he still took it upon himself to come out and say that he does not support the PRO Act. he couldn't even lie about that. So you believe him?
Yeah.
Are you genuinely dumb?
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe he got paid off. Maybe he's just actually a right winger, but he cosplays as pro. Like, I don't know.
Gotta be. I saw he obviously following the backlash that he got after the speech, because there was hella backlash. He came on to some radio show and was talking about it. And he's like, well, 40% of like union members are Republicans, so I got to speak to them too. And
Tell
it's
them
like,
they're
yeah,
wrong, dog.
You need to speak to them by telling them that you are voting against your best interest. You need to speak to them by educating them about how they can actually have good things happen to them.
Yeah.
And it involves the NLRB and getting people in seats in Congress that will actually vote for their best interests.
Yeah, no, you don't get it. 40% of my members support the Nazi Party, so I just have to go and give a speech to give them plausible deniability.
40% of my members support leopards, and they want the leopard party. Like, like they don't know that they're going to eat their
love the
faces.
face-eating leopard party. I gotta go to the convention.
They're not going to eat their faces. God, man.
Before we get to JD Vance, the RNC concluded with Trump's speech, which was very sleepy and very long. As we said at the top, it sounded like it was completely rewritten in less than a week, which it probably was. It picked up later on when when Trump started. I think he started riffing. I think he went off script, but he started talking about his supporters. And when he got to like the celebrities like Hulk Hogan and Dana White and the other people that he likes, he like cheered up a little bit. He's an entertainer at heart, and I gotta respect
the celebrity endorsements.
I gotta respect. And the Hulk Hogan moment, that looks cool. Like
Hulk Hogan ripped his shirt off.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan, a dude named Terry, sucks. Like he sucks, but like it's Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm saying?
You know, Hulk Hogan, man who's famous for saying the N-word and being white, spoke in front of a crowd of people who also really want to say the N-word
and love white people.
Like, come on now, it's a marriage.
Yeah. But let's get on to JD Vance.
Let's get on to JD Vance. I was on record saying I didn't think it was going to be JD Vance, or at least that I think it would have been stupid for it to be JD Vance. Here we are.
Maybe about a year ago when the Republican primary process was kicking off, we said it will be Kari Lake.
Yes.
And I think when we made that prediction, we were going based on two assumptions. First was that she deserved it.
Yes.
Which she does.
She absolutely.
And I will stand on that. She deserves that nomination. And two, the other assumption was that the Republicans would make a politically intelligent decision. Both of those assumptions were faulty in the eyes of Donald Trump, and he ended up making a really dog shit decision in JD Vance. And I'm not just saying that because I disagree with JD Vance's politics. I think he's genuinely a bad pick from the right-wing perspective.
I think so too. And it's also like Kari Lake deserved it.
She deserved
Kari
it.
Lake just deserved it so much.
And she's from a swing state, and she can talk.
JD Vance from Ohio. That's always going red, no matter what you do, brother. Like, I don't understand.
Middletown, Ohio, yet he says he's Appalachian. Someone explain.
Someone explain what is going on.
He's a Silicon Valley billionaire or millionaire.
I thought we hated these Silicon Valley guys. I thought we hated Peter Thiel and shit.
Yeah.
He's literally a venture capitalist. We always signal about hating those guys. And that's the other thing. Sean fucking O'Brien in his speech talked about how, corporations will come up and they'll buy these companies just to bankrupt them and feast on their carcasses. JD Vance is literally a venture capitalist.
Yes, that's what he does.
And then you praised him for that. That's his job, brother.
And then I think he started a nonprofit for like opioid crisis victims, then used that money to fund his Senate campaign.
Dude.
Like he's literally the vulture. He's a vulture. That's like what he does. He preys on the fact that that Appalachia and the Midwest has a serious drug problem and used that to fuel his political campaign.
That sucks. And it's like, just again, this just being a backwards week, right? The Democrats did the good strategy, and the Republicans are here just fumbling.
The one thing this pick from Trump tells me is that he's very confident, or was very confident at the time of making this decision.
Yeah.
Because if he thought that he needed to appeal to more people, he wouldn't have chosen a white man in a state that he's already going to win.
Yes.
So silly,
And
very
it's
silly
like,
mistake.
Even if we're discounting Carrie Lake, I think Nikki Haley would have been the better pick if she
No doubt.
If she wouldn't have went so hard on him at the primaries. I think she would have been a phenomenal pick,
Mm-hmm.
even with how hard she went on him at the primaries. I mean, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden fucking fought at the primaries. You know what I mean?
Kamala Harris told Joe Biden he was responsible for her having to ride on a different bus as a kid.
Exactly.
Like she said, Joe Biden was responsible for the separate busing issue.
And look where we are now.
She said a little black girl had to get on a different bus. You know who that girl was? It was me. She blamed Joe Biden for that. And now she's about always take the VP job. That's all I'm going to say.
No matter how degrading it is.
Yes.
And Nikki Haley would have appealed to so many more people than JD Vance.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, and a portion of the electorate that explicitly said that they do not fuck with you.
Yeah.
That's who Nikki Haley appeals to, and that's who you could grab. Obvious pick.
Yeah.
Obvious pick.
Because those are the people, those are the mythical middle of the aisle voters who will swing to Joe Biden.
Yes, the mythical people I've never met but determine every election.
Yes, exactly. But let's talk a little bit about the senator from Ohio, JD Vance. He won his first race for political office in 2022. He's now the senator from Ohio. He beat Tim Ryan.
Yes.
If we remember in the 2022 elections, Democrats and Republicans poured tons of money into that race just for Tim Ryan to lose by 5 points. But it is notable that he lost by only 5 points because JD Vance won with much smaller margins than Donald Trump did. Seems like a lot of people in Ohio just don't really like JD Vance.
I'm not surprised. He kind of sucks.
Not really surprising. Previously, before he was a senator, he was the author of a best-selling memoir called Hillbilly Elegy. He was also a venture capitalist with Peter Thiel, as you mentioned. I want to note that his memoir is about his time growing up in Appalachia as the region declined economically. The core argument of the book, though, is that the decline is fueled not by deindustrialization and government austerity, but by the quote unquote social pathologies of the working class. Basically, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Oh, wow. That's so good. People want to be addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
People in the poorest region of the country just love being addicted to drugs.
They're choosing it.
They're choosing it. They're choosing to be addicted to drugs instead of choosing to go work in the coal mine where they're going to fucking kill their body and get black lung and still end up being addicted to drugs because their quality of life is so shitty.
Yeah.
But it's because they're ultimately it's a choice every time you go to do a drug.
Yeah, and it's a shame because there is a genuinely class-based argument to make about the specific Appalachia experience growing up.
Absolutely.
And he feigns this like working class populist narrative. But then he blames the working class for their own misfortunes.
Well, it's textbook survivorship bias.
Yeah.
It's textbook,
Yeah.
well, look, I'm the one person that made it out. How come these other people don't? Well, maybe it's the fact that your circumstances were special, or maybe you were an exception to the otherwise rule that people who grow up in the poorest region of the country don't do that well.
Yeah, and also I remember he had this ad in 2022. It went pretty viral. It was the one where he's like, "Do you hate Mexicans?" And the argument was like, "We're not actually racist. We just don't like illegal immigration." Yeah. And then he said something at the end where he was like, "My mother almost died from an overdose because fentanyl keeps streaming over the border."
Oh.
And then there's a community note on that now on Twitter that notes that in his memoir, he wrote about how his mother would steal drugs from the hospital that she worked at.
Nice.
So it wasn't immigration.
He's lying on his mother's name.
It was just peak opioid crisis, which is, of course, caused by the wealthy.
Yes.
Like, come on now.
Which is another thing that conservatives get away with signaling about without actually caring about at all. You know what I mean? But God, this idea that it's just, poor people just love being poor and being addicted to drugs and ruining their lives. It's not that they were already just put into a shitty circumstance where a region has been ravaged by jobs moving away and only shitty jobs being left.
Specifically because the government had bought into the program of global neoliberalism.
Yeah.
And austerity and deregulation and increasing global wealth as much as possible. Like, there's not even an attempt to interrogate why these quote-unquote social pathologies exist. And I also want to note that you need to be very skeptical of people that talk about the white working class rather than the working class more broadly. giant red flag should immediately make you think that they are a Nazi if they're talking about the white working class.
mean,
there is no reason.
what else?
Right, exactly. There's no reason you would talk about the white working class specifically, because there is no issue that the white working class feels that isn't felt more broadly by the working class in general,
yes,
or specifically people of color within the working class. Like, there's no reason to zero in on the issues faced by the white working class.
Exactly. The white working class does not have unique experiences in the sense that the black working class has unique experiences because of the country's history of segregation and racism.
Yeah.
Very different.
If someone talks about trying to help and aid the white working class specifically, they are almost certainly a Nazi, and you should not trust them. Like, there's absolutely no reason.
Enter JD Vance.
Yes.
Enter JD Vance.
He's also a Yale graduate, which should tell you something about him. Demon Factory.
Not a single person that came from that institution.
Notably, before JD Vance was a senator, he said Trump might be America's Hitler. That's a quote from JD Vance. Democrats are going to harp on this for a while, and they'll play ads about it, which, I think is to be expected.
Yeah.
But JD Vance has already said in interviews he's been asked about this, basically said that he was wrong. He bought into the left-wing media's lies about it, which I think is enough deniability there.
I think so too. Yeah. He kind of messaged his way out of it. Like, okay, whatever.
Now, we just kind of harped on JD Vance for a while, him as an individual, but I think he's a terrible pick for Trump specifically, not because of my feelings towards him, but because he doesn't really do anything for Donald Trump.
Yes. And again, lest we remind you, the VP pick is supposed to be able to capture an audience that you yourself are weak in.
Yes.
Very important point.
It's a DEI hire.
Exactly. It is a DEI position.
Yeah. JD Vance is anti-choice. He's very anti-abortion, and he only is for exceptions for the life of the mother, not to rape or incest. He is on the record saying that much.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I feel like you can exist as a Republican and have the three big exceptions in there. There's really no reason to not have the other two.
Love of the game, hate of women.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah. He's obviously very anti-immigration, naturally. He thinks the election was stolen for Trump in 2020. He's on the record suggesting that the sexual revolution allowed for divorce between unhappy couples, or even those in violent marriages, which leads to kids being unhappy. He's basically suggesting that if you are in a violent marriage, you should not be able to divorce. Yeah. That's a bad idea.
Kids aren't unhappy when they see their dad wailing on their mom.
Yeah.
They're unhappy when their mom leaves their dad to have a better life.
Yeah, funny enough, it's never the man's fault.
Exactly.
When we talk about divorce.
It's always for just not strengthening her resolve. Yeah. I do know, speaking about marriage and JD Vance, he is married to an Indian woman, I believe, or in some capacity he's married to a brown woman.
He met her at Yale, yeah.
I'm not sure exactly where she's from. I think she's an Indian woman. A lot of right-wingers did not like that. Yeah. Did you see that on Twitter?
Yeah.
People coming out and say, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
His kids aren't white enough.
They were racial purity posting, and then I saw one where it's him and his wife and his kids of course, are brown.
Yes.
And then it was Gavin Newsom next to his blonde white wife. And they were like, where did we go wrong? How is the left winning? And it's like, you're at a level of racial purity testing that is just, I don't even know how to comment on that. You lost.
That's a banger.
Like, they're supporting Gavin Newsom over JD Vance on racial based on the race of your
purity?
kids.
Oh, my goodness, man.
It's bad. JD Vance, as you already alluded to, feigns working class populism. He opposed the PRO Act and has supported a number of other pieces of anti-union legislation. In fact, he told Politico, quote, I think it's dumb to hand over a lot of power to union leadership that is aggressively anti-Republican.
Oh, well, Teamsters is going to be pro-Republican now, so that's okay. It's okay.
Right.
He gave the speech.
Another red flag that somebody is a Nazi is when they support unions insofar as they service their own political interests. That is a massive red flag that you should not trust, because Democrats generally will support pro-union legislation regardless of what union it helps. JD Vance will only support it if it helps somebody that's going to help him.
Nice. That's really good. I only like this thing that I believe this is only a right for people who like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And most importantly for Donald Trump, I think Vance is a bad pick because, again, he does nothing to capture folks outside of the MAGA base. Again, VPs exist to fill in the blanks for where the top of the ticket doesn't. Think of Pence for Donald Trump in terms of getting religious voters, Harris for Biden because Biden was an old white man, Kamala Harris is not, Biden under Barack Obama, Biden again, old white man, Barack Obama, younger black man.
Biden, very much a DEI pick.
100%. So was Pence for the religious to get the religious vote. Vance doesn't do that. in really any way. The people that support JD Vance were going to vote for Donald Trump anyways.
Yes.
I think we could probably say the same thing about like a Vivek Ramaswamy pick or a Tim Scott pick, but at the very least there, Vivek is entertaining to listen to.
Hell yeah.
And Tim Scott has a different sort of appeal that I don't know if I can fully articulate it, but he would be able to give cover for Trump's blatant racism in a way that JD Vance or just a white pick in general isn't able to do.
And I think that like Tim Scott is like weirdly endearing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
think that's what I was trying to get at.
In a way that like JD Vance is not. JD Vance, I'm very averse to him, but like Tim Scott's kind of endearing.
It's very much like the I could have a beer with that guy kind of thing.
He's like he's like a fun wacky uncle.
He's a demon. Don't get me wrong, like he's evil. But if we're speaking purely optically, I think he would have been a better pick. Vance, even Marco Rubio would have been a better pick. Vance is just. This is the worst option out of all of it. Even Doug Burgum would have been better because he's Mr. Moneybags.
Yes, I think Trump really needed a woman because once again, we are going to have abortion at the ballot box. Like it's just undeniable that this race will be Kamala Harris naturally just has such a President Harris, future President-elect Harris has just a prime opportunity to make this race entirely centered on, or at least a massive swath of it entirely centered on abortion and women's issues.
Yeah.
And that is not something that Mr. Grab him by the pussy can really do. He really needed a woman on the ticket.
Oh, JD Vance, I forgot to add this in, also said, he said something along the lines of, we got the anti-divorce thing in there.
Yeah.
He said something else to do with divorce being wrong. I can't remember exactly what the quote was.
Nice.
But yeah, in terms of winning women over electorally, not going to happen with JD Vance.
Exactly. Like Kari Lake, on the other hand. Way better pick. Way better pick. And it's
or
also,
just even Nikki Haley.
I had seen people try and push forth the argument that like, oh, well, JD Vance is youthful and
he's anti-IDF or IVF, not IDF.
Oh my God, he's real as hell. He's anti-IVF.
Yes,
that was the most unpopular ruling. Probably that was damn near more unpopular than the Dobbs decision. Like only psychopaths are anti-IVF.
JD Vance is one of them. Yeah. I don't know why. Because like so far he said whatever he needs to get to the top, and now maybe these are just what his true beliefs.
That's like just gonna help you get right back down to the bottom. Like that is incredibly unpopular. Wow.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's so unpopular. It derailed my fucking train of thought. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but JD Vance, terrible pick.
Terrible pick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's that I've seen people make the argument that JD Vance is young. And he's going to bring, I guess, youth to the ticket. But it's like, now Biden's out. Now we don't have that issue. Now we have Kamala. She's like 50-something, right?
59, I think.
59. We have Kamala Harris, 59. Young in presidential terms, I guess. And then whatever young white boy she picks.
Little white boy.
whatever little tiny submissive white boy she picks to be her little running mate. Then we're chilling.
And importantly, now we will have a candidate at the top of the ticket that can actually make the argument around abortion and reproductive rights.
Yeah.
Like it's not just going to be, incoherent rambling and then he finally gets to Roe v. Wade needs to be the law of the land, Jack. It's actually going to be a coherent message.
I dissent.
And that was Republicans' undoing in 2022 was their they were complete lunatics on the issue of abortion, and it lost them elections around the country.
I've become so much more hopeful. And then I've also seen people say, oh, well, JD Vance is from the Midwest, so that's going to help with swing states. Ohio is very different than Michigan.
Fuck Ohio, dog.
That's what I'm saying. Ohio is like what Ohio is to Michigan what New Jersey is to New York.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Precisely. Like, we don't care about them.
That's what I'm saying. I passed through you to go visit my mom, and that's it.
Exactly.
Your shitty turnpike that's always under construction.
I think that sums up the RNC.
I think it does.
Pretty tough watch. I hope you all enjoyed those clips of our favorite speakers, friends of the show, Vivek, Tim Scott, and what the fuck is his name? John James.
John James.
Yeah,
see, he's so mid and forgettable.
He is.
Every race John James is in is just a mid-off.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
He's the Beto O'Rourke for Republicans. He is.
We should get those two to run against each other. Could you imagine? And then one of them would have to win. Oh my God, man. It'd be so good. But I think that wraps us up when it comes to domestic news at the very least. And just one hell of a week.
Yeah.
One hell of a week. I can't wait for the show to wrap and then more developments to come out about the KHive.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll see as we go, but making good on us being the best geopolitics podcast in the world.
Yeah.
I do have to give a little Israel-Palestine update.
And see, I was wondering, how Netanyahu will respond to
recent news,
to the Biden dropping out news. I wonder if he's worried that Kamala Harris will be tougher on him. I'm not hopeful that any Democrat will be that much better on Gaza, but I think it's hard to be as bad as Biden has been.
And it's like that's
for Democrats at least.
Kamala, cynically, if I'm getting into how I really feel about things and not how I'm just like trying to think electorally and optically when it comes to median voter, I think Kamala does kind of have an opportunity to distance herself from like the Genocide Joe thing in the same way that she can distance herself from Bidenflation, because those slogans are so uniquely tied to him. And to be able to, sloganeering is powerful. To be able to get around it and explain like, oh, well, Kamala was also a part of that ticket, like you're already losing people there. So I think she will kind of be able to distance herself from all of the bad rep that Joe Biden has got when it comes to Palestine. When it comes to the median voter that has just found out about the issue, I don't think, nor should she lose, like kind of be isolated from it when it comes to how she will handle it.
Yeah, she
from
should
like
be
leftists.
For it,
I hope she's better than Joe Biden, but I'm not hopeful she's going to be better than Joe Biden. I do think there's a really good opportunity for her to just ride the coattails of everything good, though.
Yeah, and it's like she didn't just fall out of a coconut tree.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like she exists in the context.
The context of this administration has been pretty bad when it comes to that. So
she exists in the context, but I think she'll be able to make her own context and get away from get away from it, at least to the extent that she needs to win the election, I hope, fingers crossed.
Yes, and, she's not averse to pretending to be very progressive.
She's done it before.
She's done it before. She endorsed Medicare for All when she was trying to run in the primary. And it's like, maybe that pretending, our perception creates reality.
Yeah, and you know what, Loki, I'm okay with it just this time.
Just in these special circumstances.
Say what you got to say to win. I don't care.
God damn, man. But either way, that brings us to the Israel-Palestine update for this week. This one isn't directly about the conflict. It's more about the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, or whatever the fuck it's called. Some shitty European name.
Yeah, who cares anyway?
Who gives a shit about, yeah, exactly. This is an American podcast. But either way, this week, the ICJ came out and found Israel guilty of setting up illegal settlements in territories occupied since the 1967 war. These include the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So as a result, the ICJ ruled that their settlements in these territories need to be removed and current construction of any new settlements needs to halt. From the AP, quote, the court said Israel had no right to sovereignty in those territories. In the territory was violating international law against acquiring territory by force and was impeding Palestinians' rights to self-determination. Bibi naturally, unilaterally rejected this and just made a blood and soil argument.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
doing
so that's
Nazi
good.
things, yeah.
And overall, very good ruling. I think this is the good and just course of action to say that Israel's settler colonialism, their settler colonial activities are bad and wrong.
Yeah, and so you said it includes the West Bank, obviously. That's like the easiest argument to make.
The West
also
Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Jerusalem.
So they'll be getting territory back.
Yes.
But the ICJ is saying they should get territory back even within the territory of Gaza.
Yes, and they're saying that Israeli settlements need to be removed from those areas.
Yeah.
And they need to be sovereignly Palestinians areas. It's kind of, overall, this is great when it comes to sort of this idea that other nations it'll be easier for them to hop on the backs of like a two-state solution and a sovereign Palestine rather than a Palestine that's under Israeli occupation.
Because now there's national or international precedent for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Now the court is saying Israel cannot do this. And it's like they annexed Jerusalem fully before this. And the court is saying, no, that's actually not your territory. Pretty big win for Palestinians, I would argue. However, huge caveat when we talk about any ICJ decision. The ICJ has absolutely no internal enforcement mechanisms. And in the AP article, they mentioned that the justices kind of kicked it back to the UN and the Security Council and said, yeah, this is up to the US.
Yep.
This is up to veto holding member, the United States, who is also a staunch Israel ally, to actually make good on this ruling and figure out how to proceed in the future.
Yeah, and as we know, neoliberals respect institutions insofar as they serve their broader international geopolitical agenda.
Exactly.
And Biden has already said, and just the establishment of the United States, the U.S. empire, if you will,
yes.
has already said that they don't like what the ICJ has been doing. I'm guessing nothing good is going to come from this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's still good to see, though. They're doing what they can.
It's good to see, and it sets the precedent for future presidents who might be progressive on the issue to come in and actually act, right? Because the ICJ has ruled it will always be international precedent that Israel settlements within the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Jerusalem even are illegal settlements. And it is up to the UN to act whenever the UN does act. Whether Kamala Harris decides to be a decent and moral and good person on the issue and direct her administration to not veto whatever measure comes through, or some president does in the future, it opens the door for something to actually happen.
Yeah.
And by virtue of that, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
At least someone's trying something.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ.
The other, I guess, update from the region, have you heard about what's been happening with Yemen and like the Houthis? They drone striked Tel Aviv.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yeah, there was a drone strike that happened in Tel Aviv. I think it was small. I think there were casualties. Israel is striking back. So tensions are rising in the region.
Yeah, I could definitely see this escalating into a broader regional war, even though Israel and Yemen aren't like close together necessarily.
No, I don't think so.
Like there's some distance there. Like it's not like Israel and Lebanon. You know what I mean? Not good.
Not good at all.
But maybe a change of administration can cool down tensions.
And
this conflict with this genocide going on does exist in the context of everything that came before.
There is a blank slate going forward, kind of.
Yeah, and it's like we're joking about it, but the U.S. is the most important actor here.
Yeah, exactly.
Israel will do what we tell them to do.
And Kamala does have an opportunity to come in and do a lot of that, and I don't think that should be ignored. And I especially think there is a unique opportunity in the idea that the convention will technically be open, although functionally Kamala Harris is the nominee. The convention will technically be open. There is a small opportunity to mount public pressure on Kamala to try and at least give lip to these things.
And there will be pro-Palestine protests at the DNC. That's already been scheduled. I've seen
which
it.
is good.
Yes.
Which is
there should be.
Great. That's going to happen. Yeah, there should be, to say the least.
Yes.
But so I mean, there is an opportunity. Kamala Harris, VP doesn't fucking do anything. Like the VP is a body. We really don't know what she thinks about any of these issues. And when she does get a presidency, I don't know.
And there was that moment one time where she was in Alabama, I think giving a speech, I think it was Alabama, and she had kind of gotten ahead of the administration calling for a ceasefire, and then Karine Jean-Pierre had to walk her statements back. There's been some reports that she has been I don't know, either upset or disturbed by how far Biden has gone with Israel, although I don't know how confirmed those are, and they could just be fabrications, or it could just be easy to say when you're not the one making the decisions, you know what I mean? It's almost impossible to tell. I do not expect her to be anti-Zionist.
Neither do I.
No candidate from the Democratic Party that we get is going to be pro-Palestine in the sense that we need them to be. But there is an opportunity for her to be better, and if we're going to stick with harm reduction, which we have to, it's the only way to engage with the system, she'll be better than Joe Biden. It's hard to be worse as a Democrat.
I do think that Kamala is just generally more susceptible to public pressure than Joe Biden is.
It seems
Joe Biden has proven to be just not receptive to it at all, but Kamala was very much willing to change her positions during the primary.
And it seems, I hate to say conservatives were right, but it seems like Joe Biden, at least for the last year or so, has been incredibly isolated.
Yeah.
From every bit of criticism.
He hasn't held a cabinet meeting since October 2nd.
Yes.
That's you can't. That's not okay.
It really seems like his team kind of turtled him and held him in solitary confinement politically, and he's just not gotten any.
They wake him up
criticism.
for Morning Joe, and then he does things until it's time for bed without meeting with anybody. I don't know what he does, but he does things, and even some of his staffers are isolated.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It seems weird, and I don't think that conservatives are necessarily right when they have criticized him for the various things, the deceptively edited videos and all of that.
Yeah.
But they were right in the sense that it seems like Joe Biden doesn't know what he's doing and seems out of touch and seems like he's been isolated from everything going on.
And that's why I'm the KHive strongest soldier now.
I am.
That's what I buzz, baby. I'm coming in.
I think that ends off this unprecedented Hiddo episode.
Yes,
getting news in the last moment.
I think this is the first week that we've actually hit like the breaking news as it like broke. You know what I mean? I think every other major thing happened after the pod.
Yeah, and look, if you want to maybe in the future be here exactly when the news breaks,
Exactly.
you got to become a patron.
Got to come on now. Think about more moments like this happening. This has been again, we said it like 2 weeks ago. This went from the worst election year I have ever seen or heard of.
Most mid
year of my life to just absolutely flipping the switch in the span of a week.
I think it's a big deal that this election is no longer going to be a rematch.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
We've been talking about for months how, it's just going to be a Biden versus Trump rematch.
And that sucks.
And it's not now. And I think that's like genuinely exciting. I'm a critic of Kamala Harris. You know, she's a cop.
In all
she was a
seriousness.
DA. I'm sure she's got lots of policies I disagree with. If she wins, I'm going to criticize her a lot, of course. But I think people genuinely will be excited that it's not Joe Biden versus Trump again.
Because I feel like that was the biggest narrative going into this is like, it's just the rematch. It's just the rematch, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like Kamala Harris won't have... She does to an extent as being the vice president, but she won't as much have the burden of like, this happened under your watch. People don't associate Biden inflation with Kamala Harris. People don't associate these last 4 years with Kamala Harris. As I mentioned the episode after the debate when I thought that she would possibly be a bad pick, she has very much kind of stayed out of the public eye and stayed away from controversy these last 4 years.
Yeah.
She's kind of isolated from it. It's damn near a fresh slate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think people will be happy that it's a person that can speak.
Yeah, I'm so happy it's a person that can talk.
And it's not someone that's on death's door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think people will be excited about it, even though she isn't progressive or anywhere close to progressive. She's probably got tons of conservative opinions that I will vehemently disagree with and criticize as they come up. But I think this will genuinely excite people. And I think that's a big deal at a time when so many people were like, oh my God, Joe Biden and Donald Trump again. I hate both of these guys. The term double hater was created to describe this election, to describe attitudes in this election cycle. And that term, at least I don't think, will really apply anymore because we've got Kamala Harris, a somewhat fresh candidate.
Yeah. And just think about the fucking coverage that this is going to get.
Yeah.
The media... Everything up until the Trump assassination was, should Joe Biden drop out? And that's already, whether or not he drops out, that's already a massive boost. That's so much attention. Now that Joe Biden's gone, so much coverage on the convention, especially when it pretends to be open. Oh my goodness, man. And then more debates. They've got to schedule more debates. I highly doubt.
Trump can't get away with not debating her.
No, I highly doubt that there would just be one debate. I highly doubt it. He has to debate her multiple times.
Especially because if Trump doesn't agree to debates with Kamala Harris, she will, I would imagine that the networks will still schedule it, and she'll go and it'll just be like an empty podium. And lots of people will see that, and that'll look really bad for Donald Trump.
Like he
has to show up.
He can't run a basement campaign?
Yeah.
He can't do it.
Whereas previously, I wouldn't have even faulted him for not showing up to the next debate because he would have said, I can't put a geriatric senile old man through
that. And it would have been kind of funny.
And it would have been really funny. But now he's the old man.
Exactly.
The dynamic's been flipped. It's a backward week.
Now that's the elder abuse. Making Trump run instead of Joe Biden. Like, come on.
Kamala Harris overcomes the most salient critique of Joe Biden for the general electorate, which was he's too old. Kamala Harris is not too old for the job. Trump's the old man now.
He's fucking 79, right?
Yeah, if Trump got elected, he would be the oldest president ever elected in U.S. history.
Come on, man.
That's a big deal.
That's huge.
That's huge when so many people are tired of old white men running the country, even if Kamala Harris ultimately would not deviate that much from the Democratic establishment.
She would run it like an old white man.
Yeah.
But you know.
Establishment's a machine.
Exactly.
I'm just worried about stopping Donald Trump from winning political office, and I think
it's about harm reduction.
I think it's a big deal that people will at least in some way be energized. And in an election that will be won or lost on the margins, it's important if even a small portion of new voters are energized to come out and participate.
I was damn near apathetic towards this election. If I did not live in a swing state, I probably wouldn't even worry about voting for Joe Biden. You know what I mean? But now, oh my God, the fact that I at least don't have to vote for fucking Biden and Slotkin. I can vote Harris and Slotkin, ideally Harris and Hill Harper in Michigan, but oh my gosh, man, it's so good. And also, when Kamala and Trump do debate, she can be funny.
She's hilarious. Donald Trump cannot handle a woman laughing at him.
No, she's not ready for that. He can't do it. He can't do it. He'll call her Laughing Kamala? That's not a good one. That's not a good zinger.
She's laughing at you.
She's like, old man spray tan.
Oh my God, it's gonna be good. And I even forgot to mention that right wingers are gonna bring out DEI president, which is just the N word. It's repulsive.
Absolutely.
People will say she sucked her way to the top, which again I think nowadays is repulsive to the average voter.
Absolutely.
They will bring out a slew of attacks based on her gender, based on where her parents came from, based on her race, that I think will turn off a lot of moderate voters because they cannot help themselves.
We might get Obama birth certificate V2.
Oh my God.
And like that shit is why racists went out and voted for Obama, so that they could pretend to not be racist.
Exactly. That people will want to prove that they're not racist and misogynistic by voting for the first black woman president.
There's something to be said about like, I don't know exactly how to articulate this, but it means a lot more culturally to have racism as an accusation levied against you than misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
People very much brush off being accused as a misogynist, but if you accuse someone of racist, they'll get very angry. People are morally invested in not being racist more so than they're invested in not being misogynist. So to get out there and be a moderate who's kind of racist and say, no, I voted for Obama and Kamala Harris, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's something on our side that we can't let go. And if JD Vance, for simply having a brown wife and brown children, can get the reaction he got from the Republican Party, and fucking the sick prayer can get the reaction it got from the Republican Party, can you imagine how swiftly moderates will be turned off when that starts being boosted at a national scale?
We already got DEI president in the New York Post.
Exactly.
And that was before that was before Biden dropped out.
Yeah.
That was in the midst of Biden saying, I'm staying in the race, and they dropped DEI president already.
Like, come on.
They won't be able to, these next 4 months, they will be straining themselves to not say the N-word.
Exactly.
Like it's going to take a Herculean effort to stop them from saying explicitly racist things. They're going to do it. They cannot help themselves. But it's that kind of thing, that kind of repulsive bigotry will turn people off from Republicans, and I think that's a good thing.
I feel like I have a new view on life. You know what I mean? It's like life really changes in but a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we sort of, that's like a hinge point in history, you know, the timeline split. And we're on the good one. We're on the good one where Biden dropped out.
Thank the Lord.
But another version of me is on the bad one.
Thank the Lord who told Biden himself to drop out.
He's going to come try to take my place or something. He's going to jump timelines and take me out. Come into the good one. Look, man, it's a good day.
It's a good day. It's a great day. Like I'm smiling. I'm kicking my feet. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna enjoy meal prepping for the first time in a while.
I'm gonna listen to the takes.
Exactly. I'm not gonna dread my Sunday night like I usually do when I get home from the pod.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, man! New lot on life, new lease on life. DNC, I am open.
Let's see. Let's recap the episode. So, white boys up 1 million.
White boys are up harder than they've ever been up. Damn near. In modern American history, white boys are up harder than they ever have been.
Come on,
white boys are clamoring at the bit to be vice president right now.
The vice presidential pick pool for Kamala Harris is exclusively white men. White boys up 1 trillion. You can't tell me it's a white boy summer.
I'm open to Kamala Harris if you want to reach out.
You can vet me. You can vet me. I only got 200 hours of audio on the internet for people to pour through. But look, white boys up 1 million. That's an important point.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a very important point.
Right. This is single-handedly just a counterpoint against white grievance politics. And that's what we've needed for a long time.
Trump assassination attempt already forgotten.
Oh my, nobody cares. Nobody fucking cares anymore.
And that's important too.
I can't even, I thought that it happened. It doesn't feel like it happened last week. A presidential assassination. A president literally gets fucking shot, right?
It's a week since all of you were freaking out like, oh my God, Trump's going to win. Not now.
Not anymore. Fucking, I'm on the wheels on the bus are going. Wheels on the bus are going towards a better tomorrow.
It's true. And lastly, importantly, we can win.
We can win. I'm hopeful.
Trump is an incredibly beatable candidate. He's not a good candidate. He will not be able to contain himself.
People hate this guy.
That's important.
Trump and Joe Biden both had the lowest approval ratings, again, in modern American history.
They
suck. I think in history, they've had the lowest presidential approval ratings. Not Madam Vice President Kamala Harris.
she's unburdened by what has been.
Literally,
She exists
my
in the
God,
context.
Man, oh my God, I feel like I just took a fucking hit.
And now it's time, at the end of this joyous day, this joyous episode, to give a special thanks to all of the members buzzing around inside the KHive
That's
right
right.
now.
That's right. Buzz.
We are
to
turning
these special people.
we are turning the Patreon from a grassroots funding mechanism for Head in the Office into a donation mechanism for the KHive.
Get in, loser. We're joining the KHive.
This is now a political action committee. We are doing political expenditures. We'll be taking donations of up to $3,300 starting now.
Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to hop on Twitter after this. I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life my night on Twitter.
Because like everyone's hype about it now. The next month is going to be pure coverage of either just Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee, or speculation about who it could be if other people announce to run. And I don't even think that'd be that bad of a thing.
There's going to be so much news.
Yeah.
There's going to be so much news.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, my tip's sticky, bro.
Oh
I can't even.
my God.
Jesus Christ! But special thanks to
Buzz.
all these people that are hopping on the bus towards victory. Special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Dow the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vezquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsver, Yuck, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Bennett Bennington III, Alexia Benatti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Contact, Corey Chambers, Eliane, Devin Hatchard, Retromondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Ghana, Quana, Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valenic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Zen doing their best, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Dick Cheney and 3-inch Heels, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Lauren, Unchrasmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, Patrick Simpson, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Dialectic Dreamer, Kevin Kasaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, My Mom, and Nancy Pelosi. Thank you all so much for supporting the show.
Hell yeah.
Nancy Pelosi is not a patron, of course, but she made all of this possible.
Absolutely. Nancy Pelosi, the hero of the week right now. Oh my, what a legacy. What a legacy. What a woman.
I'm coconut pilled. I'm context maxing.
I'm Pelosi pilled.
And look, as we said last week, lock in. We're ready to go.
I'm fucking chucking my ballot into that box. Oh my goodness.
I'm ready for it. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a great week.